Hey, what's going on? Bernie Miklasz here. Welcome to the Bernie Show, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Before we get started on the topic of the day, I want to talk about Michael McGreevy and the mysterious ways of the Cardinals thinking. Anyway, before I jump into that topic, I want to make sure you're aware of a couple of things. First, you can find all of my video commentaries and written columns at one place here at sportshubstl.com. And second, if you prefer to listen instead of watching, that's cool. Taking the dog for a walk, rather do the podcast style thing. Well, there's a podcast version of the Bernie Show videos available for you at Apple and Spotify. And thanks to our staff for making all that stuff happen. Appreciate it very much. So thank you. I originally planned to do kind of a rant on the Cardinals' decision to send Michael McGreevy to Memphis after he turned in a relief pitching gem that was basically a start, because he came in and went a long way after replacing the laboring Andre Pallante. So you know what? I originally planned to do that, so I think I'll go through with that plans. I'll be under control, though. I don't know whether you like that or not, because it's have a lot to say about it, because I find it an intriguing situation, and I find it kind of typical, unfortunately typical of the Cardinals' logic or lack thereof for quite a while now. So anyway, let's start with Pallante. He's gotten smacked around pretty hard, real hard, over his last four starts. Over that time, he's got a 6.86 ERA. He has failed to provide at least 5 innings in 2 of his 4 starts, and opponents have walloped him over the last 4 starts for a 350 batting average, 590 slugging percentage, and an OPS that's over 1,000. The carnage in the last 4 starts includes 6 home runs, 4 doubles allowed, more walks and strikeouts, and his strikeout rate, Pallante's strikeout rate over the last 4 assignments is less than 9%. He ain't missing bats, is what I'm trying to say. So if you go to Pallante's StatCast page, you'll see, they have a graphic chart at the top. And listen, I'm not trying to annoy people that don't, you're going to hear me talking about red and blue and either, I get it. It's kind of like maybe some gobbledygook for a lot of you. And I'm sensitive to that, but it also, when we talk about StatCast and we talk about the graphics they use, that gives you a really quick look at whether a guy's doing well or not. You look for the red or the blue in all these different categories. Red is really good. Blue, not so good. So if you go to Pallante's StatCast page, you'll see that there are 15 categories. 12 are blue. There are a couple that are kind of grayish, like, in other words, average, and then only one is red. And that's for his high ground ball rate. So you don't need any deep analysis to see whether a guy is pitching well or not. In fact, that's why this kind of choosing the colors red or blue to apply to a guy's standard, you literally visually can just see whether he's doing well or not. I mean, it's actually so simple. It's great, right? So Pallante is way, way on the wrong side of the quality standard. He's way, way, way away from being red. He's into the blue, right? He's really struggling. He's in the bottom 17% of all major league pitchers in pitching run value, the bottom 16% of all major league pitchers. And when I say that, that means starters and relievers in expected ERA, the bottom 6% in strikeout rate, and so on and so on and so on. They're not chasing his pitches out of the strike zone the way they used to, and so on and so on and so on. His fastball velocity is down. And this season, hitters have punished Pallante for a 48% hard hit rate. There's not a lot of soft contact going on out there. That puts him in the bottom 13% of all major league pitchers this year. His hard hit rate's a problem. That's why we're seeing a lot more home runs and extra base hits. So last season, see, you can click back to 2024. Last season, there was a lot of red in Pallante's profile, a lot of red, much more red than blue. which indicated what we could see with our own eyes, that he pitched well for the Cardinals once they gave him a chance to and put him in the rotation at the end of May. But a season later, it's flipped. He's got the wrong color attached to him this season so far. And I'm not laughing at him. I'm laughing at the fact that I keep talking about colors. All right. I'll shut up now about that. But when you see, code red, one more time, when you see code red everywhere on his profile, well, it means he's got a lot of work to do. He's got some things to make right. And the place to do that is AAA Memphis. That's where he went early in 2024 to fix himself, and it worked. Listen, just so we understand each other, I like Pallante a lot. I was really happy about the way he pitched after the Cardinals finally made him a full-time starting pitcher. I mean, I was very, very pleased to write about how well he was doing. But every season's different, and it's not as if, Pallante has kind of got this protected status that, he's got a track record where he's been a really good major league starting pitcher for 3 or 4 years. And so you ride with him for a while to let him kind of work himself out of this. He made 20 starts last season and they were good. Most of them were good. But it's not 20 starts is not 50 starts. It's not 75 starts. It's not 100 major league starts. In other words, he still has a lot to prove, and that's okay. That's okay. He has shown the ability to pitch well. But his pitching is clearly out of whack right now, and there's no shame in that. It happens to younger pitchers. Memphis is a good place to regroup, and Pallante could be back in St. Louis in a relatively short time. It's funny how the Cardinals work. Let's go back a little bit. You see, they drafted Pallante out of college, and then he was basically a starter, but they thought, oh no, he gets all those ground balls, gets a ton of ground balls, so he can neutralize left-handed hitters in a relief role. And, that worked. It really did work well for a time. But after some initial success, and all you got to do is go to Baseball Reference, after some initial success, he wasn't very good at all coming out of the bullpen. And don't forget, I always got to remind myself and all of you of this. It was Pallante himself who went to manager Ollie Marmol and pitching coach Dusty Baker when they said, not Dusty Baker, Dusty Blake, sorry, when they said they had to send him down to Memphis to get right. And he talked them into conditioning himself as a starter. And he said, I believe my future is starting. I think I'm a much better starter than reliever, and I'd like to work on that. And they said, oh, okay, go ahead and work on that. So, and he did really, really well. But keep in mind, what did it take other than his idea to go back to being a starting pitcher? What else was required in all this, right? He had to go to Memphis to get himself right. Okay. Starting or reliever, it doesn't matter. He had to get himself right because he was going way off course as a pitcher, right? And so here we are again. And, and Pallante knows what's best for Pallante. And while he ain't going to voluntarily ask to be sent to Memphis, at some point, Marmol and Blake or John Mozeliak or somebody down there is going to have to intervene unless he starts pitching better. Once again, what got Pallante on track a year ago? He went to Memphis and he worked on his various pitches and he sharpened up and he came back a better pitcher. What in the heck would be wrong with trying to do that again? I repeat, I like Andre Pallante. I'm rooting for the guy. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like seeing him serving up batting practice in 2025. The Cardinals waited too long. And again, why do they wait so long before they take action? They waited way too long to stop the fight this season when the young reliever, Ryan Fernandez, was a mess. Lost the slider, couldn't find it. And they just kept sending him out there over and over and over again to take a beating. And they lost some games because of it. They finally did the right thing by assigning him to Memphis after that Cincinnati series to get himself right. I think it was the Cincinnati series. It doesn't matter. They finally did it, but they should have done it sooner. In fact, I'll probably be writing about this later. since they made that move, sending him to Memphis and sort of retooling their bullpen, the bullpen's been better. Hello? Anyway, too often the Cardinals are slow to react, and that seems to be the case here with Pallante. But instead of signing him to Memphis, the Cardinals sent McGreevy back to Memphis. Perhaps Pallante's on the clock, and we'll have only a few more opportunities up here to revive his pitching performance at the big league level. We'll see how it plays out. But it makes sense to stay with McGreevy, and I'll explain why. But by the way, I don't fall for the spin that they feed, other media people. Well, we got to keep them down there because we need to have depth down at AAA. And everybody, taking their notes. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, let me write that down. Oh, that makes sense. No, actually, it doesn't. I'll explain why later. It does make sense to stay with McGreevy. He pitched 5 2/3 scoreless innings after replacing Pallante against the Mets on Sunday, and McGreevy's outstanding work gave the Cardinals a chance to recover in Game 2 and sweep that doubleheader. In 5 big league performances since last summer, and the Cardinals they're just so strange. And I'll get to this later, I promise, because this is a really important aspect of this. They're just so strange. They have a good young starting pitcher, and every time they give him the ball, he looks awesome, right? And yet they're reluctant to give him the ball in the major league level. I'm sorry. Is this the Dodgers where the Dodgers have like 25 pitchers that they can call on at any time and they get 5 guys hurt? They got 5 more guys they can plug in. Why are they so snotty about a young pitcher they drafted in the first round and who has done everything they've asked? In 5 big league performances, only 5. So it should be about 25 by now. In 5 big league performances since last summer, McGreevy is 4-0 with a 1.57 ERA. He's been effective whether they use him in as a starter or in relief. He's got some strikeout punch. It was 25% last year, which is good for a starting pitcher, especially for a Cardinals starting pitcher. Again, we're talking about very small samples, I know. This year, I think, the one appearance is like 22, 23%. He's got some strikeout punch, and I think the more he pitches, the more that'll be that up here, the more that will come apparent. He gets a lot of ground balls, not as many Pallante, but he gets a lot of ground balls. He doesn't issue many walks. I mean, his brief time in the majors, his walk rate's below 3%. That's outstanding. And he's effective at holding runners on first base. He just has so many attributes. And I'm not saying, that he's going to be Adam Wainwright, but what I'm saying is they have a good young talent here, a promising young talent here. And this is supposed to be a runway season, is it not? Or is it a reset? Or is it a transition? Well, I'm not sure what it is. Have they changed the messaging lately? I don't know. Yeah, he's got 28 2/3 innings of pitching on his major league resume. Very, very small sample. I know that. And McGreevy, over time, will have to validate his early showing, his positive early showing in the major leagues. And we know that, right? But I'm going to get back to these word salad. It's supposed to be a runway or a transition or a reset season. And I think McGreevy seems like the ideal runway season type of starting pitcher. He's young. He's talented. They thought so much of him. They drafted him 18th overall in the 2021 draft. He's put his time in the minors. He's worked nearly 500 innings, and every time they give him a chance up here, he looks great. So what's the problem? From a logical standpoint, McGreevy has done all that it takes to deserve a major league job, and he's done everything the Cardinals have asked him to do. But the Cardinals aren't giving him a major league job, not a steady major league job. They're keeping him housed in Memphis most of the time. See, if you say, yeah, well, you can disagree with me on any of this, whatever. It's fine. But if you're thinking like me and you say, well, this doesn't make much sense. No, but you know what the mistake is for me and for you? We think about these things in logical terms, and that's our first mistake. See, we assume that logic will prevail, and they'll make logical decisions that make the most sense. But too often they don't. So why do we expect them to be logical when they are an illogical operation, right? So, and I want to get more into that after I take just a little bit of time to tell you about DraftKings. We love the fact that they present the Bernie Show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you think you know Major League Ball or the NHL, the NBA, golf, NASCAR, soccer, whatever, it's a lot of stuff on there. It's time to put your knowledge to use and have some fun doing it and win some money. In DraftKings Pick 6, you just focus on player stats. You go to the sport you want. You focus on player stats, and then they put a specific number under the player for that day. And then you make the decision whether if you like that number you see and you think you have a feeling about it, you choose between whether the player will go higher or lower than the specific number lasted at DraftKings on that day. Like, for example, I like to give examples from time to time. Paul Skeens starts against Cardinals Tuesday night. DraftKings lists his number at 6.5 strikeouts for tonight. And that's your challenge. You have to decide if you would want to, if you have a strong feeling about it, you'd have to decide whether Skeens will go higher than 6.5 strikeouts in this game or lower than that total. And if you make the right choice, you win. And there are so many options available like that every single day of the Major League Baseball season or the other seasons they're referred to. So make your selections. Take your best shot at pulling in big cash prizes. Pick six, is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. Playing a lot is a fun. I like the fact you make your picks, then it's kind of a blast to track them to see how they're doing. It's like trying to watch a race, a horse race, right? And you get to see if you're on the mark, and if you're on the mark, you're in the money. I signed up. I was impressed how easy it is to get started. You just download the DraftKings app and you open an account. Then you choose a sport, you pick your players, and you go for it. New players at DraftKings get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly with just a $5 entry. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code STL Sports. That's important. Use the code STL Sports for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right. Let's get back to Michael McGreevy. First of all, speaking of logic, right? I know what some of you are probably thinking. You're probably wondering, well, why haven't you brought up the bigger point, Bernie? Which is, with some, okay, this shouldn't be about Pallante and McGreevy. They should have gotten rid of Michaelis. They should have gotten rid of Fetty. They should have traded Steven Matz. I got you. I hear you. I don't disagree with you. But the Cardinals aren't going to do that. And they've made that clear 1,000 times. They're not going to dislodge one of those guys that they're paying, one of those veteran guys. They're not going to do it. So I see no reason to scream about a false premise. Yeah, maybe the Cardinals can or will trade Fetty and or Matz at the trade deadline. Michaelis got a no trade clause. He's been pitching, better lately. So I don't know if there'll be a trade market with him, but he'll have to approve it anyway. And the trade deadline doesn't move in until near the end of July. So I understand, the bigger problems, they haven't made room for young pitchers because, damn it, they pay these guys and they're going to pitch no matter what. I know that. You don't have to tell me that. We all agree on that. Anyway, and by the way, Matz is having a really nice season for them. So I don't think he deserves to be put in that category in terms of like what we've seen so far this season, right? Anyway, I know what the Cardinals are saying, and this is where they kind of dole out the cookies for the media to kind of just, oh yeah, okay, oh yeah. I know what they're saying. Well, we're low on starting pitching depth, so we really think it makes sense to have McGreevy in Memphis where he can be prepared in that starting pitcher role. He can be prepared for the call when we need some help because of an injury or another matter. Okay. I sort of understand that. And I would really understand it if it wasn't coming from a front office that speaks out of both sides of its mouth, right? Depending what spin they want to sell to the media and fans, right? But here's the thing. If having depth available in Memphis is the prime motivation for keeping McGreevy at AAA, the same objective can be reached by having Pallante down there instead. And he does have an option left. And here's the potential bonus. If Pallante refines his pitching and he solves his problem, just as he did last year in Memphis when they sent him down, then the Cardinals would have even better depth. And at that point, McGreevy and Pallante, if you want, they could become interchangeable. If you get Pallante right, that's just one more option you can call on instead of keeping him in place in the big league rotation right now when he's struggling and he's getting popped all the time. Now, what's his problem? I feel obligated to point out what the issue is. It's his four-seam fastball. Everything else is working okay. But this season, opponents are pounding his four-seam fastball for a 307 average and 573 slugging percentage. Maybe it's the drop in velocity. Remember when that was a story at spring training? It was a legitimate story. I got to think somehow it is tied into the drop in velocity because last season he threw that four-seam fastball a lot and hitters only got it for a 227 batting average and 295 slug. That's the same pitch. Well, it's not the same pitch because it's not working well, but you know what I mean. So 307 with the 573 slugging percentage against the four-seamer this year. Last year, 227 with a 295 slug. There you go. Even a schlub like me can identify what the issue is. For whatever reason, Pallante's four-seam fastball has become batting practice for hitters in 2025. I have no idea why the Cardinals think this is a smart idea to have him serving up batting practice on a pitch that he throws nearly 50% of the time. That's the thing. It's not like this is a secondary pitch. This is his primary pitch. And this has been an obvious issue since spring training when Pallante checked in with a four-seam fastball that had lost some zip. And if you remember, he had a very poor spring training. And now he's had a couple good starts in here, but now he's trending in a very poor direction. So what I'm choking. What's the issue here? Major league hitters, I know this, they really appreciate the Cardinals' generosity in staying with Pallante. I'm sure they were like, almost weeping when he left the game. The Mets were over there like putting their faces in a towel, like trying to hide their tears after Pallante was removed the other day. And we certainly saw the difference between Pallante and McGreevy when both faced the Mets in that second game Sunday. Pallante faced, check this out, he faced 21 Mets and 13 reached base on 9 hits and 4 walks. The Mets scored 4 runs off Pallante in his 3 1/3 innings. McGreevy entered. He faced 20 batters over 5 2/3, 20 batters. Only 3 reached base. He had that thing in command. And I know, Victor Scott had to make a great defensive play. Well, yeah, pitchers need help from their defenders. I'm not going to deduct points because of that. But I guess the Cardinals evidently want to give hitters more opportunities to beat up on Pallante. Very kind to them, and I apologize for the sarcasm. So Pallante's four-seam fastball is weak right now. They got to get some answers. Why is this? Is there a physical issue? Why is this? Is it mechanics? Why don't they get to the bottom of it? Why do they think it's okay to have him stay in the majors and get clubbed upside the head over and over again with the highly ineffective four-seamer? Here's another riddle. And follow me on this one. The runway season is supposed to be about giving, opportunities to young players and pitchers. Okay. And Pallante still qualifies as young from the standpoint he's not an established major league starter with an extensive track record, right? Okay, so if Pallante is a so-called runway starter, and McGreevy definitely is a runway starter, and both guys are in the same category, which is a different category than Michaelis, Fetty, or Mats. They have immunity because of John Mozeliak, right? So if Pallante and McGreevy are in the same category, and one of them pitches very, very well, and the other one is pitching poorly, why would you stick with the guy who's pitching poorly? It makes no sense. But again, my friends, I'm thinking logically here. And that is my mistake, as I said earlier. One of the things coming out of their confusing reset, runway transition season is that they have either a very vague or fairly vague, but definitely confusing agenda. And this makes our attempts at applying logic illogical. We can't assess much of anything in terms of personnel usage or decisions with this baseball team in situations where normally you would apply logic. You would apply logic to traditional standards. But what are the standards? I don't know. Kind of seem to shift, right? The same front office that in recent years has given starting pitching opportunities to Drew Rom, Daniel Ponce de Leon, Jake Woodford, Johan Oviedo, there are others, did not do so with Matthew Libator until this year. And they have not done so with McGreevy. That just simply does not make sense. And the same organization that rushed out before the 2024 season to sign 3 free agent starting pitchers, Sonny Gray, Lance Lynn, and Kyle Gibson, because they had huge rotation voids because of their massive failure to develop young starting pitching. So they had to go out on the market and buy starting pitching, and you can't do this. It's not a good way to run your business. And the Cardinals keep telling us, well, what we really need to do is get back to the time when we had, a farm system and player development. We were really strong at drafting and developing starting pitchers. And that way we didn't really have to go out and, kind of do a hunt for starting pitching on the free agent market because we had our own guys coming through the system. Yeah. Well, now that organization led by the same guy, they have a pitcher that they drafted in the first round, a pitcher that they've taken time to develop, a pitcher that looks great in those rare occasions that they actually trust him to work at a major league game. See, McGreevy represents everything what the Cardinals say they want to do, and it's certainly something they have to do, which is develop good young starting pitching. And yet, they won't make a spot for him in the big league rotation. And this is in a runway season. I tell you what, it is enough to make my head hurt. So here, I got a prop today. Yeah, and this is pre-planned. So I'm being a performer. I need to take some meds. So that will do it for today. They actually do make my head hurt. My Redbird review column will be available later. Thanks for watching The Bernie Show, as always. Thank you. Thanks for reading the column. And thanks to DraftKings for presenting The Bernie Show here at sportshubstl.com. Have a great day.